In the latest war on graft and economic crimes, the Director of Public Prosecutions is turning his guns on alleged tax evaders, the latest involving 2 cases amounting to 55 billion shillings from the alcohol processing industry. A decision which KRA Commissioner General James Mburu says is not by chance, as it is the culmination of investigations that have been going on for years. Mburu saying the goose is cooked for firms that have been evading taxes.
What I have decided is that since you have deducted knowingly that this is taxpayers, this is government money, and you have failed to pay, I'm not going to pursue it in a civil manner because it's deliberate.
In Kenya, businesses are required to pay at least 3 forms of tax depending on their trade. The value-added tax or VAT is charged on taxable goods or services made or sold in Kenya. Businesses with a revenue of at least 5 million shillings a year must register for VAT and make remittances and returns every month. Every firm that has salaried employees must deduct pay-as-you-earn, remit and file returns with KRA every month. Firms involved in manufacturing of specified goods are required to charge and pay the excise tax. Companies must also pay corporate tax charged at 30% of profits. Should a firm deduct withholding taxes on monies owed to non-employees, it must remit it to KRA, failure to which the KRA boss now promises to come after them.
When I catch up with you now, first of all, I will treat it as criminal, so that then tax collection can be given the respect it deserves, it can be given the seriousness it deserves. Instead of you waiting for us to catch up with you, and then we start now at a conversation, there is a dispute. Which dispute?
Individuals doing side businesses are not lucky too this time. Mburu saying KRA teams are monitoring unexplained lifestyles led by individuals in person or online without corresponding tax remittances.
There is a whole army
for that purpose,
both covert and overt, collecting information. Suppliers of county governments, many of them, are not paying taxes. Yeah, they are not, and I have a whole team right now looking at them.
Kerocha Industries directors and the firm are out on a collective cash bill of 22 million shillings in a case of alleged tax evasion amounting to 14 billion shillings. African Spirits and Wines of the World proprietor Humphrey Karaoke is out on bail of 11 million shillings in relation to a tax evasion case alleged to be up to 41 billion shillings. Mburu saying while KRA has a window of negotiation for a payment plan with tax evaders who admit liability once the case is in court, the only chance is negotiation with the prosecutor.
But of course, if they are already charged in court, they have to go through the DPP, through what we call the pre-bargain. But if we have not gone to court and you want to settle your matters, we encourage the alternative dispute resolution process.
KRA has it that 250 billion shillings is lost to tax evasion annually. Sam Kituku, Citizen TV.
And that's where we start the discussion. And Daniel, I'll start with you. Your reactions on the recent arrest. Would you say KRA is on the right track, legally speaking? Because now he said he's going to move it from civil to criminal.
I think the main challenge that we are currently seeing in Kenya is the fact that the way the Kenya Revenue Authority and also DCI and the DPP is approaching the whole issue of whether taxes are due or whether there's tax evasion is we think it's not procedural. Because generally what the procedure that should be followed is that if there is a tax assessment that has been issued, one should actually be found guilty in terms of having avoided the tax, for the matter then to proceed beyond the question of whether the tax is due or not, and proceed to the question of the DCI or the DPP being involved. What we are seeing happening at the moment is that in most instances, the KRA will only issue what's called a letter of findings. A letter which simply says, we think that these are the taxes due. There is no opportunity for the company to say whether the tax is due or not. And immediately, arrests are following, and the matter is then being escalated towards companies being closed down, accounts being frozen. And in most instances, it is going beyond the company itself, going to the directors, sometimes to people who are overall shareholders, notwithstanding the fact that in Kenya, there ought to be a separation between the company and the shareholder. And
explain that to me. There should be a distinction between the management and the company itself. So who do you hold accountable?
So ideally, what should happen if let's say a company is found to have taxes due?
Yeah.
The liability sits with the company. Under the provisions of the Tax Procedures Act, there are certain instances, if the company is found to actually be guilty and to owe that money, there are certain instances where where the directors can become liable. The directors need to have known that the taxes were due, and the directors need to have the knowledge that they were intentionally not withholding the amount.
Right.
So what's happening now is that, notwithstanding the fact that there is no opportunity for either directors or significant shareholders to give, to say whether the taxes are due or not, they are being held personally accountable for the tax belonging to the company. The company is not given an opportunity to say whether the tax is due or not. And there are instances where not just the company, but if you go up several layers of groups of companies, they're looking for significant shareholders up the chain. So the whole concept of who is the tax due from, has due process been followed, has basically been completely ignored. That's what we're saying.
Philip, even as you're about to come in and give your opinion as well, perhaps for me, my question would be, right now in Kenya, we are seeing two business tycoons, Humphrey Kariuki and one, the Karanjas as well. One has 14 billion Kenyan shillings in tax evasion, the other one has about 41 billion Kenyan shillings tax evasion. They're both court cases. So then, are you confident that justice will be followed?
Well, obviously, because matters being in court, so we've got to be sensitive commenting about matters in court. But if I just look at it from an overall perspective, you've got to follow due process when you raise a tax demand. Okay, the law provides for you're given an opportunity. You have an assessment, then you have to object to it. After that objection, you have what you call a confirmed assessment. Then you're given a chance to appeal to the tax tribunal. Where you've got a situation whereby you're just moving from demand and then straight up into making arrests, then you've not followed due process. But when you just look at it, because it's the public domain, and I look at it hypothetically, where you have a company that you're demanding about slightly over 40 billion. If you work it backwards, then they should be the largest manufacturer of alcohol in this country. Yeah, and if you compare that and look at the largest manufacturer that we know, they have 52% market share. So again, puts to question that kind of numbers that have been bungled around in terms of an assessment. And again, tax is about facts and it's about evidence. So
those numbers are over a period of time. It's over a period of time. It's not just within a year.
Yes, if you look at it,
so it's cumulative.
From 2015, if you look at that number and gross it up, I mean, you then wonder, with that kind of demand, you should be feeling that impact in terms of there's a huge distribution mechanism that you should be seeing. There's a huge effect within the economy. So again, it's one of those things that I mean, if you look at it from where I sit, I struggle.
Right. Githii Mburu was here and he said that the main concern here is that this is not the first time they're having those conversations. They've had those conversations over time, giving them a chance to respond, giving them a chance to have ADR, which he says is their first alternative. They're going the criminal way because now they've been pushed to the wall.
Now, if we look at the ADR process, now we call it TDR, that's a process where you go in and negotiate and come up to an agreement. And the ADR process, any taxpayer can go through the ADR, remove your matter from tribunal, high court, into the ADR process. When you're going, I mean, the tax tribunal did not have members for a while. I think they only gazetted in May of this year. So it was a limbo. I mean, they operated only within a chamber, so no quorum. Then tax matters were not being heard because the tribunal was not formed.
Right.
Again, you don't then punish taxpayers because the CS are not appointed members of the tribunal.
Right.
ADR is a process of negotiating and agreeing it's like a hostile negotiation to try and say, okay, from where is it, what's the cost of litigating this, vis-a-vis agreeing to an amount where you pay and settle the matter.
Okay.
When you have tax disputes, there's a laid down procedure within which to handle tax disputes.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing happening is the approach that has been used in Europe, where it's name and shaming. When you had the Googles of this world and Starbucks of this world about 4 years ago being named and shamed in public, then that then exert more pressure onto entities to come onto the table. But again, I have to remember, tax avoidance is allowed in law. It's actually based on the old Westminster principle.
In fact, that's what I was actually coming to. Yes, please help
now.
us. Sami, I'm coming to you in just a little bit, but Philip, help us understand that the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion, which one is legal?
So, tax avoidance is legal, okay? And tax avoidance is based on the old Westminster principle, whereby it talks about anything, you're allowed to arrange your affairs in such a way you reduce the amount to the exchequer.
Hold that.
We want to stop you just a little bit. We're going to come back to that.
Sure.
Just hold it. Sami, let me come to you. When you see such a story, what do you think that if it was an ordinary Kenyan, if it was just you and I, small-scale traders, would have been treated the same way?
I want to be the devil's advocate today, because one of the things which I believe in is payment of taxes. The small trader who I represent, basically we have been thriving in ignorance for a very long time. And one of the things that KRA should do is educate people in terms of payment of taxes. The two gentlemen here, there's a lot they're talking about payment of taxes, avoidance and the rest.
Right.
And that information must be disseminated even to some of those people that you are calling the big shots. Because lack of information is a big thing in terms of tax payment. Some people, as the CG said, don't even know. And that's why even they come to the office and they negotiate with them based on what they have. But there are some people, basically, they employ guys who know what they are doing. And they're avoiding the taxes. So for the small traders, what we are looking at is disseminating the rightful information to the grassroots, so that each and every person should know that they have an obligation of payment of taxes.
Sami, at the end of the day, if convictions don't happen, if these tycoons, none of them is locked up and is jailed, is it fair then tomorrow if the same justice system came for someone who has a tax evasion of 100,000 and is jailed?
You see, I don't use that. There's a saying, but I just put a disclaimer there. You know what people say the law is. So the law goes for the big shot and the small shot. So it doesn't have gray areas. So it goes for this person or this other person. But what we are looking at, I think personally, is an amplification of two people or two entities. I think it has been blown out of proportion because there are so many other people who have avoided taxes. I was looking at the data the other day. A Chinese has avoided taxes of about 164 million. It doesn't have the same traction as the Kenyans. And so I think basically if we stop politicizing tax payment and we go for the right procedures, like the gentlemen are saying, because I think ideally that KRA, as whatever they are doing, it's fair enough to have a KRA person here to say the procedures they are supposed to, and they have done for those people. But you see, the matter is in court. So we can't be able to bring justice basically to this discussion.
From the small scale traders perspective, are the tax paying systems friendly enough for you? Why are we seeing an attempt to evade tax? Is it because the businesses are just breaking even and barely surviving, or is it that the systems are too rigid?
Yes, the systems are rigid. Let me first agree with that. And I think one of the things that the KRA has to do is, and we have told them that, is to simplify payment of taxes. I'm supposed to pay my taxes even with my kabambe. I'm supposed to have a USSD code whereby I'm remitting my taxes. So if you come and tell Mama Mboga, or not even, let's not even go there. Go even to the Buddha guys. They are making money. You know, when you come to the ground, you're going to be astonished the kind of money people are making. But they're not paying taxes. The government should bring in a mechanism whereby every person is subjected to payment of taxes, and they also be responsible of the services that we require from them. Number one, when you look at the small traders, the moment we have easy way of payment of taxes, which are not punitive, basically, and I'm allowed to do it in a negotiated way, whereby I can be able now to come and tell them, this time round, I've not been able to pay this much, but let's agree, in this period of time, I'm going to pay this much. So the moment we have that kind of agreement, because it shouldn't be that punitive, basically, it's a relationship, it's a give and take, because we are here to stay, we are here to do business.
Okay, Philip, back to our definition, the difference between tax avoidance, tax evasion, which one is legal?
So tax avoidance is where you plan your affairs looking within the tax laws and reduce that which is due to the exchequer. And it's allowed, it's a principle, we call it the Westminster principle. Tax evasion, on the other hand, is where you intentionally refuse to pay your taxes. For example, you deduct PAYE from your employees.
And then you don't remit.
And then you don't remit. I mean, that's theft. I mean, that is stealing. That's evading.
Yeah.
Okay. Or where you charge VAT onto your customers, collect that, then you don't remit. You keep it either to use at working capital. I mean, that's tax evasion, and that's illegal, and that's criminal. But that's criminal. But you need to appreciate that tax has always been a civil matter. Yeah,
always.
So
it can turn into a criminal matter.
So when you go into that extreme of criminality, you said first start asking yourself, let's backtrack a bit. Look at 2002, when His Excellency Mwai Kibaki took power. And then there was a whole mantra within KRA to lipe ushuru tujitegemee. And guess what? Kenyans were proud and were walking shoulders high, proudly paying their taxes. And we saw a whole jump in terms of taxes, and there was traction in paying taxes. Over the last 2 years, we've got, in my view, we've got what I think is a taxpayer apathy. In the sense of, I will pay these taxes, alafu mabwenyenye wazikule. I just put it in a better way. I'll pay these taxes and they'll be gomadized by dams. They'll be eaten. So corruption. So as a result of this animal called corruption, it is now taxpayer apathy. When someone will ask you, so why am I paying so that it can go to the big fish? Why am I paying so that
it goes to someone else's pocket?
Yes. So we now have a taxpayer apathy. Unlike a situation whereby in 2002, 2003, we had taxpayers proudly najivunia kuwa Kenya. Right now, look at the small traders, and you can confirm that wanavumilia kuwa Kenya. Hawajivunii kuwa Kenya.
Daniel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to jump in onto that. I think what the real issue we have in Kenya at the moment, we don't have a real problem on the revenue side of tax collection. Our real problem is on the expenditure side. Just going to the point that Philip was making, that in reality, what we're saying is that no matter how much tax is collected, it does not necessarily, it's not being used properly, and as a consequence, there is a move within the country of people generally being, apathy, as he says. But additionally, there's a theory as to tax collection as well as, do you cooperate with people in terms of making taxes be collected, or do you come with a whip and a stick to your taxpayers to collect the tax? Now, there was a time when the Kenya Revenue Authority used to approach the taxpayers on the basis that let's cooperate together. We are in this together, we are working together, we will hear you out. In fact, they had created a structure where they had a customer service person who would call up the taxpayers and say, thank you for making these taxes, we see that you've been doing well, keep on doing this, we will visit you, we will award you for being a good taxpayer. Now, the entire move of the Revenue Authority seems to have moved to the completely opposite direction, where now it is a question of if you do not pay, we are coming after you. There is the whole sort of mood that the Revenue Authority has is that we are suspecting you, we think that you're guilty before you're proven innocent. All we need to know is that someone will we have intelligence that suggests that there is tax that is due, and without confirming anything more, your bank accounts are frozen, your businesses are closed.
Is there a possible blowback for that? Because this name and shame approach that you're taking, say it goes through the entire court process and then you find out that I wasn't evading the taxes after all. Do I then sue KRA?
So So that's the thing, there's a risk of a blowback because you'll find that companies are actually being ruined. Companies are being closed down. Businesses are being shut down. The betting sector is one example, where because of various tax demands, and there is a matter that is before the High Court and also before the Tax Appeals Tribunal on a certain definition of whether these winnings are actually due or not. Yeah. Before the determination of that definition, companies have been shut down and they're not operating. Yeah? So it goes to the question of rule of law. Yeah? Are we in a country where due process laws should be followed? Yeah. Should you allow a dispute to be heard in full before then assuming or concluding that taxes are due? Yeah. And the Commissioner General said that because she's going to chase taxes in a manner that is not civil, on the basis that people have been evading intentionally. Sometimes it is not a question of evading. Yeah. Sometimes it's that there is a legitimate issue in the law that needs to be determined by a third party, either by a high court or by a
We do actually
appeal.
have what he said. In fact, we can even play it. That was James Githii Mburu, the Commissioner General for Kenya Revenue Authority, speaking on moving the cases from a civil case to a criminal conversation. Let's have that soundbite and then react to it.
Since you have deducted knowingly that this is taxpayers, this is government money, and you have failed to pay, I'm not going to pursue it in a civil manner because it's deliberate. While deducting, you knew. You have kept it. Why should I come for it and we start arguing?
Because it's always been a civil approach. What you're saying is criminal law, yeah?
Why should you deduct? It is not even your money, for example. It is withholding tax, belongs to the other person paying. Pay as you earn, belongs to a person who has worked in that organization. You deduct it, you keep it, and you wait that you will pay when you are caught. That is deliberate. The change of tact is, since you knew what you were doing, when I catch up with you now, first of all, I will treat it as criminal, so that then tax collection can be given the respect it deserves.
Daniel, does he have a point though?
No, well,
you deduct knowingly and then
he has a point where someone has deducted knowingly.
Yeah.
So for example, take PAYE. Yeah. You have deducted it from your employees, you have refused to intentionally remit it. Yeah. Or VAT. You have charged your customers, you have collected the VAT, you have failed to remit it. But see, he's only referring to certain instances. What about all the other cases where there's a dispute? The dispute is before the Tax Appeals Tribunal or before the High Court. Right. Yeah. So the reason why someone has not paid the taxes is not because he's intentionally refusing to do so, but because there's a legitimate problem with the law.
Right. Okay. So that leads me to my next question. You talked about how with KRA, it's not the issue of the revenue side. That's okay. It's the issue more of the expenditure side. Yep. Nevertheless, then do we need as a country to start changing the way we collect our taxes, our tax reform?
Because they've also missed targets six times in a row. So the collection also is not that good.
So I think if you look at the history of taxes in Kenya, just 5 years ago, the amount of revenue targets that had been given to the Kenya Revenue Authority were about 60% of what they are today. Every year on year, there's a huge increase, there's a huge jump. Yeah. So the real challenge that is also arising is, with an economy that is not necessarily growing commensurate with the tax collection targets, how do you match up? And maybe this is the reason why we are seeing a change in tact with the Revenue Authority, because the amount of revenues that they need to collect are not commensurate with the way the economy is growing. And previously, where they were happy to cooperate with the taxpayers, it is now becoming apparent that to bridge the gap, maybe they need to change tact in terms of the way they do it. Right. But ultimately, it boils down to the question of due process being followed in terms of how they do it.
Okay. I mean, speaking just on the comment by the Commissioner, indeed, General, indeed, where you've deducted and not paid, I'll pursue it aggressively. I'll pursue it criminal, DCI. Fair enough, because you've deducted not paid. Today's headline, looking at what's on the table, we've got about 10 counties who have not remitted PAYE. That means they have deducted employee taxes and not paid.
It's somewhere in the system.
Following what the CG said, why are you not seeing that aggression by DCI then issues, arresting?
He did say though that it's a process, so they're going to have more people coming in, so we might give the benefit of time.
For me, I'm saying that aggression that we're seeing, I think we must put things put it in perspective. A year ago, 2 years ago, Kerry moved the thinking in terms of trust and facilitation. In fact, in December, there was a whole meme and thing where you received an email from Kerry wishing you Merry Christmas. Yes. I think anybody receiving an email from Kerry now will be in shivers.
And they're demanding for taxes.
But I think we need to move back, in my humble submission. I think Kenyans have demonstrated over at least from 2002 to now, over the last, they've demonstrated their willingness to pay taxes.
Right.
Under that regime of trust and facilitation, and engage at the end of the day, looking at them as your customers.
Right.
That has worked. This name and shame for me sends shivers.
So, Philip, bring it down for me. Paint for me a picture of what tax evasion does to the economy, what it does to that price of bread. So,
Tom, when you evade tax, let's take an example. For example, PAYE. It was to take an example of these 10 counties, assuming it's 6 billion. So that's 6 billion that's not paid to the exchequer. The effect of that is, like now we have a stalemate on the division of revenue because there's no money. So if this money went into the exchequer, the national government, we're able to allocate more into the county government, i.e. pesa mashinani into our MCAs and into developmental projects. So we're able to meet government expenditure. As a result of not collecting this money into the system, then the government then has to go into the domestic market and borrow. Borrow through the treasury bills. When you borrow through that treasury bills, because it is government borrowing, government, unlike Trevor and myself, are risk-free. So you'll find that banks are more comfortable giving loan to the government by buying the treasury bonds. Then the small traders will scramble for what is small remaining in the pot.
With exorbitant interest.
With the exorbitant interest, which thankfully right now is capped.
It's capped,
but that's a challenge.
Not for long.
But not for too long. There's a repeal coming up. We have to take a quick break on this, but there's a lot of feedback coming in. And when we come back, I'd like to hear from Sam whether these taxes, are they too high or are they too many? For that Mama Mbonga down there, she's thinking, so who do I pay? City Council, KRA, are those same taxes? Are these different individuals? Is that where the confusion is? But we'll come to that in just a bit. Let's see what you're saying online at Citizen TV, Kenyan, Trevor Mbija, @Zinzi_K. Kennedy Atinda says tax avoidance is legal, where you minimize the rate of tax, while tax evasion is where one fails to file tax returns, which is illegal. May the panel help me understand the difference between tax avoidance and a tax loophole.
I believe we've already done that, but we can take the conversation further by learning the methods of tax avoidance. Jose, good morning. You say we do system support for a company in the US online. Should we pay tax considering that such services are not taxed in the US, or should we just remit payee tax? I'm sure we'll be able to pitch that to our expert.
Yes, let's see what you're saying on 22422. It is our SMS line. Just tell us your name and where you're texting from. Nixon from Kindaruma says, I pray that KRA continues being innovative in terms of developing friendly tools and apps to aid in tax remittances and tax returns.
Still on SMS, Juspa, you're watching from Wangai. Good morning. You say audit firms with KRA officials are aiding tax evaders. Your panelists want to tell Kenyans that KRA is naive to charge people without exhausting internal tax resolution mechanism. Please give us a break.
They think KRA are just doing the right thing. We'll find out what you think in just a bit. Right after the break, keep your views coming. 22422 is SMS line. Just tell us your name and where you're texting from. We're getting into this discussion in just a bit at Citizen TV Kenya. Trevor Mbija, @Zinzi_K. Hashtag is Daybreak. We're back in just a moment.